Appreciate everybody attending. My name's Matt Sump. I'm our Illinois and Iowa Mastercam guy. I got Joel Ash, who a lot of you may not know, but he's our cam assist lead here at ShopWare. Recent hire once we started offering this as of July. And then we also have Matt Cesny, one of our applications engineers that has spearheaded supporting and working through this software along with Joel. And then basically my introduction here, a lot of you probably know the kind of 30,000 foot view of what Cam Assist can do. So we'll get a little more into the details today of what it actually is capable of. It's developed by a company called Cloud NC. They are out of England. They have, I think, 15 or so CNC machines that they've been developing this for better part of a decade, a ton of venture capital type funding. Really caught my interest. I found it, I think, on a LinkedIn post almost a year ago now, and that's when they first started the Mastercam beta, and I've been testing it out. And as someone who demos Mastercam, it has been really valuable because it really does eliminate a lot of the busy work. Is it perfect? No, but nothing is. But it really does save the time on that menial side of programming that I like to call it, where you're picking surfaces, you're picking check surfaces, you're doing containment boundaries, picking holes for drilling. It takes care of all that sort of busy work for you, and then you get to spend the time that a lot of us that have been using Mastercam a long time, which that prompts me for the one poll I'm going to launch here. You can do all that stuff with your eyes closed. Where the skill of using Mastercam comes into play is the knowledge that you've gained over the years of how to manipulate tool paths and the power of Mastercam to get a tool path to do exactly what you want it to do, which I think has been our strong suit for a very long time now.
So Ryan, on that, 4 to 8 weeks is what they're out for ITAR compliance. That will be a whole separate server that they're using that will be registered and be good for ITAR compatibility. So 4 to 8 weeks. And I do have a list of people to be contacting once that comes available.
Thanks, Joel.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this Cam Assist webinar. So without further ado, let's run through some demos here. Now, kind of like Matt said, this is designed as an assist tool. It's not going to guarantee 100% of your part, but it does do probably more than 80%, if not close to it. Without feature-based machining, this is more of an AI-generated software, so it's a little smarter than your standard feature-based machine. Now, there's a few rules and kind of things that you have to look out for when starting Cam Assist, and that is just a few things right off the bat. And these are things that you still may need to know as a programmer. Whereas if I just brought in someone that's never touched Mastercam before, they may not know how to set up planes or set up their part or manipulate their model. And these are all important aspects before you can kind of jump into Cam Assist. So kind of the step one here is we want to make sure we have our part where we want it. So what I've done is I've created this operation 1 here as the back side of the part. And then I've created this operation 2. And if I jump over to my planes here, I'll see I have my top plane referencing my op1, and then my op2 is referencing back side of the part. So again, first step, make sure your part is orientated correctly as I have here. Next, I need different machine group setups. So if I'm doing one operation, I need to define that. If I'm doing 2, which I'm doing here, I'm going to need 2 machine groups. So I'm going to quickly do that here. I'm just going to go to my default, and I'm going to need 2 of these. So right off the bat, I'll just call this one op1, and I'll call this one op2. So inside these machine group setups, you have to only define 2 things, and that is your stock and your master model. So I'm just going to go right to that page here, and I'm going to turn off my device here just so it's not in my way when I define the stock, because I've created that nice bounding box for me. So I'm just going to go through this here and define that as my stock. Okay. Now this is the master model. This is another thing Cam Assist needs to recognize. all this section is determining what is your finished part and what's not. So I didn't want to define that whole fixture assembly, that Kurt Weiss in there. So all I'm going to do is say, hey, this is my part right here, and I'll end the selection on that. So that's my first setup right there. Now the second one down here, you need to define it the exact same way. So I'm going to go to my op2. I'm going to turn off my device here. So again, they have to be the same values in operation 1 as they are in operation 2. Again, I'm going to set up my master model. And then I can just green check out, and that is quite literally all you have to do for the machine group. Just set up your stock, set up your master model. So that's step 2 there. Now the next thing, we want to determine our tools. Now I'm going to show you a bunch of different ways that you can let Cam Assist use its own tools, or you can, in this model, I'm actually going to define what tools I want to use. So I'm going to open up a library here on my desktop that I'm using for this. So I'm taking these tools here, and I just came up with some random ones that I thought would be a good job for this part. Now those of you that have seen this part before in the class we teach here at Elgin, we know that this part probably takes us more than half the class just because there's a lot of chaining involved, there's a lot of different tools, there's a lot of different things to cover, we're designing it. So I'm just picking a few tools here that I think would be good for this job. Now, another thing I need to mention here is they have to be defined as an assemblies. They cannot be defined as tools. Cam Assist does not pick that up. So if you're determining or you've never worked with assemblies, it's as simple as I can come up here and create a tool. I can say like a 1/4 inch flat. And I could just bring it right down into that assembly, and now it's saved in that section. I'm going to delete this just because I don't want to use that for now, but I just wanted to show you it's as simple as that. Creating a tool, bringing it down, it's now in your assemblies. So I'm going to green check out of here and save these changes. Okay, so step 1, we line our part. Step 2, we define our machine group setups with our master models. Then we took the time to define our tool assemblies, all the tools we wanted involved in that. Now it's time for us to jump right into Cam Assist here. So right here, I'm just going to jump into the Cloud NC Cam Assist. Alright, so first thing we'll see here is the tool library. Now this is going to the, actually the correct library I want. I'm just going to make sure I have that exact one. Okay, so tool library is set. We have different machining modes. I have 3-axis and 3+2. Cam Assist supports most CNC milling machines. It currently does not support any lathe, but that's currently in the works. So kind of stay tuned for that down the road. And I'll show you some 3+2 examples a little later in this webinar. Next, you have the setup orientation. So I have operation 1, which I was using my top plane for. And then I have some select avoidance geometries. So I can go in and choose that. And I'm just going to pick these jaws right here. Say, hey, just don't come close to that. And if you hover over this section, it says press escape when you're finished. So now I have these 2 avoidances selected. Op 2 here, default set to bottom, but I'm going to use the user-defined plane I created, which was just called op 2. And just to reference, that is this operation 2 right here. Now I can jump over to my other view sheet and just say, hey, even though it's the same spot, I'm just going to click these jaws right here, and I'll hit escape. So I've defined my operation 1, I've defined my operation 2, selected any avoidances I may want. Now I can jump over to the next tab, tool use. So again, it's taking that exact library. It found 5 assemblies, and this is that area where I said you can't just use tools, you have to use assemblies. I'll come back to why it says no material there in a little bit later. But these are the stock materials that you can define. So there's aluminum, high carbon, low carbon, steel, titanium. And now with the newest update, I think it came out October 2nd or so, you can now define alloys. So I have these different ones if I chose different stock materials. So that's a really nice new feature added. So I'm just going to say, let's use aluminum. And I'm also going to come back to this section, but for now we're just going to say use Cam Assist feeds and speeds, but if I define them, you can use them as well. So this section down here, this is where I could filter out or decide what I want to use or what I don't want to use. So right now, for tool 1, maybe I don't want it to do any helical boring. I don't want it to do any roughing, so I could just uncheck those and it's not going to do that toolpath or operation for it. Whereas maybe this number 2 here, I want that to just do roughing. I don't want it to do any of these wall finishing, flat finishing, or helical boring. And then I'll keep the rest of these on with drilling, spot drilling, and chamfer milling. The next tab over, this is where you can define what types of toolpaths you want to do. Now, I'm going to keep all these on except for detailed roughing. That takes a little bit more regen time, and it's basically just that. It takes a lot of regeneration time. This is more of a simplistic part, so I don't really need to keep that on and just waiting all the time. They do have a good description of what they do, so if you're ever curious, you can kind of just hover over any of those and it will explain it. The geometry section, I do want it to machine the full part, but if I didn't, I can just uncheck this box and select the faces that I want to machine. I'm going to leave some stock for axial and radial as is, and then you have what type of finishing toolpath that is supported here. Now you're not going to see every finishing toolpath that you might want, like equal scallop. It's not quite in this canvas quite yet, but it is in the works. So these are kind of the finishing ones that we're left with. So I'm just going to keep these all kind of default as is, waterline, chamfer milling for deburring, and I'm just going to hit the green check. And I'll let canvases do its thing. So it's scanning the model, it's creating all these different toolpaths, and this is where we can see it has generated 11 operations, and it's machined 19 of 28 surfaces. So it's not 28 out of 28, it's not 100%, but it's more than 70%, more than half the part. So I can hit OK, and I can let it still think about its operations here. Alright, so again, this is a lot faster regen time because it's a more simpler part. The bigger models, the more kind of 3D work involved, it's going to take a long time. And I don't want you guys to have to sit here for 30 minutes just watching this thing regenerate. So in the first operation here, we start off with the stock model that it creates. And then the next thing is it goes right into its tool paths. Starts avoiding those sections. Another stock model, followed by some other tool paths to do the finishing, some drilling cycles, and some chamfering. Now operation 2 starts off with the stock model from operation 1, and then it continues on roughing using stock models, as we see there. So I'm going to select all of these. They go right into verify, and we can take a look at what it's machined. Slow this down a bit here. There's the bottom section, and then it's roughing out to the top. So we get those nice chamfers. It's finishing all those operations. So it's did a lot more than half our part, absolutely. If I come back into Mastercam here, there's a few things to note. Now, right off the bat, you saw it's taking all these toolpaths, programming the part for us. Now, if you are an experienced user and you know what's inside these parameters, you can, sure enough, go right into the parameters, and I can update any one of those pages with the information that's given. So it shows me what the speeds and feeds are used in Cam Assist, shows me all the different geometry selected, different cut parameters, linking. So I can go through this if I was familiar with that. But let's say you were a brand new user, you had no experience using these toolpaths. How do I go about adjusting these without having to, go through a bunch of training manuals and courses and learning all the ways of Mastercam? Well, any one of these toolpaths, like let's say operation 1 here, let's say for some reason I wanted to adjust this step over here for this OptiRough toolpath. Well, I can right-click on that tool, and we have the Cutting Parameters Explorer. This is basically to edit any canvas's toolpaths. So I can go right directly into there. And we're going to get this nice interactive page that we can give all this information for. So it's telling me what operation I'm in. So it's the OptiRest toolpath there. determining the material. I'm using the default machine. Now, another important thing to note, you are going to have to take the time to set up your defined spindle RPM, your torque, get your machine specific in Cam Assist before kind of running this. Shows the tool and the roughing that I'm using. So this is a kind of nice interactive bar here. If I bring this more so I want to increase the tool life, these values down here will get adjusted. Likewise, if I bring it over to increase productivity, you can see these values are all going to shift. So you have depth of cut, width, spindle speed, feed rate, and if I go down a little, these are more specific to the machine itself. And again, these are all important information that Cam Assist is going to need right off the bat. So some other things with this that are nice is you get this option to see viewing the tool as a step over or a step down amount, or you have this kind of heat map here. And now the green areas are the more ideal ranges of this section, whereas the red, those are kind of the, don't really want to be in that section of my tool. So I kind of personally like this viewing of my display, which makes it a little easier to determine. And this is where you can adjust these ranges. So maybe like width of cut, you can take these little kind of taskbar arrows and you can send them over, and you can see now it's basically fully engaged with that width of cut. Not ideal, that's not something I'd want. So I can tone it back down here. Or, just for dramatic effect, I can type in some numbers here. So maybe I say like, I don't know, 0.2, adjust that, hit enter, it's going to adjust those values for me. So I can save these operations, and then we can see right here, once I click on the force regenerate, it has now expanded that step over a bit. And so those are just a few ways that you can adjust Cam Assist toolpaths. Is there any questions so far, Matt?
No, sir.
All right. So let me kind of take a step back here because I want to show you a few things. I'm going to delete these operations just because we already have our stock set up. I don't want to have to go through that again here, so I'll just delete these a little bit. So still have my machine group set up. All is good. Now, when we went to define our tool assemblies, as you see here, didn't really give it any information. I just pulled this from the default Mastercam mill library. But if I go into Cam Assist, see here it's asking for my to sign in here. Just give me 1 second. So yes, allow. Okay, so I'm going to set this up as my op2. All these are still the same as before. But when I go into tool use, you're going to see that when I hover over this, there's this term no matching presets. So this means that no matter what I do in defining these spindle speeds and feeds, it's not going to pull them from the library I define. But if I use something here like Cam Assist's library, and let me go ahead and quickly find that here. So I have this Cam Assist inch. There's also the Cam Assist metric, as you can see there. So I'm going to open that up, and we're going to see a little difference with this. When I go to my tool use page, I get all these little blue boxes. Now those are presets that are defined, and these were where Cam Assist took the time to test all these values out. Tool speeds, surface feet per minute, feet per tooth, all these values are saved with these presets. And there's quite a wide list of these tools that you can use. Now, you can run these tools just as is with Cam Assist, and it does a really nice job, which I'll show you in another example. But let's say, for instance, I want the tools that I defined in my assembly, and I want to define my own speeds and feeds for that. Well, if I go back to my database here, again, those presets are not here. So how do we define our presets? Well, this is where we're going to go and use the outside tool manager. So if I go to my start menu and I scroll down here to the version of Mastercam I'm using, 2025, and I'll just go ahead and click on my tool manager.
Well, that's loading very fast. You mentioned processing on the cloud.
It's creating the toolpaths. So Cam Assist is creating the toolpaths in the cloud. So once they come back onto your computer, once they show up in your toolpath manager, then everything is on your local computer. So the regen, everything, that is all done on your computer. So once the toolpaths are on your computer, you can do any editing there, and then it's done communicating with the cloud.
Yeah, so basically it's just sending the toolpath data and all the settings of the toolpath and the surfaces selected. That's what it's calculating up in the cloud. And then the actual like regeneration of the toolpath inside of Mastercam is done on your local computer. I hope that makes sense.
So when we open this outside tool manager, I'm going to open up the two different libraries. First, I'm going to open up the Cam Assist so we can see what's already set in there. Alright, so when I open that, I can see there's a bunch of different tools listed as tool assemblies here. And they also come with material and cut parameters here. So all these cut parameters were calculated and tested out by Cam Assist, and you can see it's kind of a lot of manual work involved setting these cut parameters. But let's just say we wanted to do it anyways. I'm going to still show you how to do that. I'm going to reopen tool assembly that I'm trying to set presets for. And we can see the assemblies that I have 6 of them, but there's no material and there's no cut parameters. So it's never going to pull any information because those two are not set. So what I can do is I can take Cam Assist's library here, and I'm just going to copy this material. And I'm going to go into my library, and I'm just going to paste it. And now we can set a cut parameter. So I'll go into that section. There's currently nothing. So let's add a cut parameter. So when defining the cut parameters, again, there's no presets in this section currently. Let's say I wanted to make a preset for tool 1, this 1/2 inch flat end mill. And maybe I want to just use this 1/2 inch flat for, say, just roughing. I could come over here to the name, and how I'm going to define this is I'm going to say the tool number, which is 1, and I want to say that tool is going to be used for just roughing. Now, when determining the names and how these work, I have a nice little abbreviations sheet. And this is actually on Cam Assist's website. It's a little blurry, but these are the different operations you can determine, and these are the abbreviations. So roughing, you just stick with an R, and these are the operations that it will only do. Whereas finishing, you can see the kind of abbreviations to kind of make your library as you please. So I'm going to keep it like that. And Cam Assist needs 2 things when defining cut parameters, which is the feet per tooth. So I'm just going to say, let's give it a hefty 3 thou there, and we'll do a surface feet per minute is another thing it needs. So I'm just going to say 1200 for now. Now you do want to end up giving it more of these informations like finish axial, finish radial, but for now I just want to show you where these values will populate this information. There we go. So, if I go into the toolpath once this finishes here, it's okay about that failed. I'll explain why it's doing that. So I just want to look at the roughing operation here. So right off the bat, it says it's going to fail, and that's because I haven't defined any step over or step up or any step down in my tool manager, as you can see here. So I'm just going to quickly give it something that I know is going to work here. Something like, let's do 12% for both of those, just to calculate that. And now it fixes that operation. Okay, great. But I'm looking for, did it actually hold my feet per tooth and did it actually do my surface feet per minute. So if I go back to my tool page, right here I can see it did define those exactly. So it's 1199, close to 1200, but it is taking in that feet per tooth. So this is how you can go about actually setting your own speeds and feeds. But like you can see here, it's kind of a bit of manual work. So this is going to segue into where we can actually take advantage of Cam Assist's tool library. So I'm going to open up another part here. So this might be another part that you're familiar with in class, where it takes us quite a bit of time with the amount of different features on this part. So I've taken the time already to set up some stock, set up my master model just as before. Nothing's different. Both are the same for the machine group setup. Now instead of using my own tool library, I'm going to use Cam Assist tool library. So I'm going to go into my Cam Assist here. And I'm going to set this back to the Cam inch. So let me go ahead and find that really quick. Cam Assist inch, I'm going to load those tools. Those already have the presets made for me. I'm just going to set this to operation 2, so it does both top and bottom of the part. I can select my avoidances if I'd like. Alright, so that is set right there. I'll keep it 3-axis. Tools used, it's going to find all that information from that library with all these presets. So without me going through this list and turning off all these individually, I'm just going to say let it run and see what it does here. So nothing really different here. I'm going to keep the stock values. I'm just going to run it with the green check. Alright, so using Cam Assist library, look at that. 21 of 21 surfaces machine. Great. I can say OK, and then we'll do our actual true testing on it, make sure it's actually telling us the truth here. We'll let it just do its last minute regenerations. Okay. So let's see what we got here. We got some facing, followed by our stock model, some roughing, followed by another stock model, some different operations. When I get to operation 2, more stock models, more roughing, and then we get some more finishing operations. So let's see what this looks like when I go to verify it. So start off with those operation 1 and then operation 2. Now if we want to check how much this is machined to by a specific tolerance, you may know of the compare feature. So I can say, I'm going to check what's machined to a 10th tolerance. When I hit the refresh here, my whole model is green. So it's machined everything up to that 10th. I could go in more if I want to, but it exactly found 21 of 21 surfaces, and you can see how little interaction I have to give it. Really just making sure the hard work by setting up my planes, making sure the parts are orientated correctly. It's kind of taking care of all that work for us. So this is also a good way, as you saw, we just let Cam Assist use its library. We can build our own tool libraries in our shop based off of Cam Assist. I can look at the list of my tool paths, and I can determine from this list, okay, these are probably the best options for this part. I'm going to go grab those tools. I'm going to make that in my own tool library. Another thing with editing these tool paths, going right to that parameter explorer, if I save that information in this operation, it's going to save that to my tool path, to my tool library itself, so I don't have to go and adjust those parameters each time I'm switching tools. So that's another thing to look at. So again, it's an assist tool. It's more so to take care of those kind of menial jobs that you can see. This does a great job of just producing that tool path. There's a few other things I still want to talk about though. Whereas maybe we want to do some 3+2 machining. Now, once I have Cam Assist on my computer, there are a few demo parts that you can always take a look at. So I'm just going to use this demo 4. And let's say I wanted to only do this 3+2. I didn't want it to do any 3-axis on top. Well, those of us that know how to do 3+2, we have to create some planes and do kind of all that work up front. Cam Assist takes care of that for you. Now, just to show you that, we have all these top, front, back, bottom, right planes. I'm going to shift my part to show you how it's actually going to make that. So if I go to rotate this, so it doesn't necessarily have to be right perfect to a 90 degree. Let's say move. So my machine groups are here, but I need to set up new stock because I tilted it, as you can see there. So I'm just going to add from the bounding box and say all shown. And I'll say that's my stock. Master models already selected. I'll just select it again here just to make sure. Again, I want to do the same thing for operation 2. So machine group 1, machine group 2, all set up the same way. Not even going to worry about how it's orientated. I'm just going to go right into... I'll just use Cam Assist library. And I'll switch this machining mode to 3+2. So if machining direction, if you used align XYZ, you'd have to make sure the part is aligned. But I'm going to set this to user defined so that I can utilize this orientation change. I'm going to turn off machine group 2 because I don't want to use that. And I'll just keep it set to top. And here's where I can select my machine directions. I'll just pick this flat. I'll just pick all 4 flats here. So again, anytime I select it, you can hover over that little status bar up top and just hit escape. And it's going to pick off all those 4 directions. I'm going to use Cam Assist's library just as is. And I'll just hit the green check. Alright, so 11 of 28, and that's just because I didn't pick the top section, so it's not going to machine from the top. It's only going to do it as 3+2. So I start off with, again, my stock model. I'm just going to wait for a little bit of the rest of these to regenerate. Alright, so we got some roughing, some more stock model, roughing, kind of chipping away at that stock model until basically it looks like that. So again, these are going to be probably some parameters that I'm going to want to adjust because it's taking some hefty cuts there. But without having to even create my planes, it's doing that 3+2 work for me. It's doing some other finishing on the sides there. So just to show you back in my planes page where we only had those default Mastercam planes, I now am going to see all the different Cam Assist planes that were created. So all that kind of menial work that I'd have to do to create those up front kind of gets taken care of with Cam Assist.
All right, so for the cycle time estimator from CloudNC, what we need to do is we need to make sure we are putting the parts that we want to be estimating, we're going to be putting them into a folder. So I got a couple folders here that are pre-set up. I got one with 1 part, I got one with 3. So we're going to look at this 3-part estimator folder here. So if I open that, I got part 1 here, part 2, and part 3. So the same setup that Matt talked about in Mastercam, we need to do with each one of these files that we put into this folder. We are going to need to define our master model, and we're going to need to define stock. So I just put a bounding box around this and I picked the master model. For these parts, these are 3-axis parts. So I got 2 machine groups. So the same setup that Matt went through. machine group 1, machine group 2, and we want to set these up the exact same way. So master model, stock, exact same way. So I went ahead and I've done that for these other 2 parts. So I got all 3 of these parts are set up the exact same way, with the stock, and we definitely need to make sure we got the stock the same, and we pick the master model. So once we get those set in a designated folder, then we go into our Cloud NC, we hit our cycle time estimator. And now this is going to look a little bit different than what Cam Assist did. So here we're going to look for a folder path. So what folder do we want to look at? We go to, oh, wrong one here. Cycle time estimator files. So we want to pick the folder. We're not going to go in and pick a specific part. We're going to pick this folder, and it's going to highlight. It's going to show, okay, we have 3 parts. Okay, so we have 3 parts here that we're going to be looking at. So tool library. Here again, now we're going to pick our tool library. I am going to use that same Cam Assist tool library that Matt had been using. It's going to show tool assemblies. Here again, we can pick our aluminum, pick our material. That's one thing that when we're doing this estimating, we want to make sure that the parts that we put into this folder, they are all the same material. And they're going to go to like the same machine group type. Not necessarily, it has to be the same machine group, but we want kind of the same machine group type. So for this, we're going to use aluminum, and we have the alloy so that we can pick there too. We're just going to go with generic. We go to the machine here. Now this is some setups that we can have for our specific machine. Spindle speeds. This is going to help with some of the cycle time estimates that's going to come through. Just okay, spindle speed, our fat max feed rate for the table. This is one that I really like playing with right here, is our tool change time. So when I was doing estimating, I'd take Mastercam, I'd put the part in, I'd put some tool paths to it. I'm sure everybody that does estimating, that's kind of a good gut check on how to get a good estimate of time. One thing that I would always kind of forget about is the tool change time. There's not a way in Mastercam to add that in, as far as I know, anyways. So on Canvas or with the estimator here, we can change this tool change time. So depending on from chip to chip, how long does your machine take? Let's just leave this at 30 seconds for those purposes. Okay. So once we get those set up, okay, now if I hit run, it's going to run all 3 of these. You guys don't want to sit here and wait for probably 10, 12 minutes for this to run. So I am going to just run part 2. So we can shut them other ones off. We're just going to run part 2. Once we hit run, it's going to go through that same process. It's going to be sending the information to the cloud. It's going to take your part geometry. It's going to take stock setup tools and any cutting parameters that are in with those tools. Send them to the cloud. Then it will actually start spitting out tool paths, and it'll give us a cycle time estimate, taking into account that information we put in that machine group. Once this Cam Assist box goes away up here, then it's no longer communicating with the cloud, and everything is back on your computer. All right, here we're hitting cycle time, or the estimator, say a 19 operations, 77 of 82 surfaces. This is something that'll pop up in the estimator, and it pops up in Cam Assist. Kind of gives you a little overview of what it is all looked at. So we look into here. We are on demo part 2. So this will give us a cycle time, an estimate. Total time, 24 minutes. Machine group 1, 23. Machine group 2, 52 seconds. basically on machine group 2, since I did not have any stock on the bottom, all it's doing is it's just doing the chamfering. These can be exported out into a notepad document, so you can attach these to quotes if needed. You see down here, it'll have demo 1, demo 3. It does remember from time to time, so you can keep checking back to see, okay, what did this part run, or what are the estimates on this? Until you hit clear all, then it'll wipe them out. So if we look at our toolpaths, it did go through the same process of what Cam Assist did, and it is creating toolpaths for that. These toolpaths, this is not, you're not going to want to run this, put this into the machine. You're actually going to want to run it back through Cam Assist when you get the job and when you're preparing the job for the machine. That's a quick overview of the estimator. Like I said, we can do up to 10 parts as long as it is the same material and kind of in the same machine group type of situation. That is really what I have for the cycle time estimator. Definitely a powerful tool. Softjaw Designer, that was something that somebody was asking about. That is on Cam Assist or Cloud NC right now. It is not available. They're still developing it. I do not have a timeline when that's going to be available, but that I am guessing it's going to be available in the near future. And I'm kind of looking forward to digging into that part too. One other thing that Matt did not mention, I'm just going to show you guys here real quick, is in Cam Assist, when we were picking our tool library. So we can pick a tool library. So if you are going between multiple libraries, Cam Assist will pick from multiple libraries. So you can have a few different libraries in here that it'll choose from. That's one thing that they just added on one of the last releases, and it's really nice. If you're bouncing back and forth between different libraries while you're programming, this will automatically do that for you. So like Matt said, any questions? I have been doing some demos on these. If you have any questions, reach out to me. We can certainly go over things more in depth if you need to. So you're gonna want to rerun it back through Cam Assist again.
Okay, I see. So you run like a roughing Cam Assist routine and then a finishing.
For the estimating tool, it's going to pick it's going to go through all of those toolpath types. Sorry, I think that's what you mean there, Nick. It's going to look at all the toolpath types. It's not like in Cam Assist where we can shut off certain toolpaths. In the estimator, it's going to look at all of these and it's going to do all the toolpaths.
Okay, so yeah, this is my final slide here with our contact information if you need to reach out. Thanks, Matt and Joel, for helping out today, and hope everybody has a good rest of their Wednesday. Thanks.